unshakable pride that has willed him to victory for a generation.
Every moment of Erik Morales' life has been predicated on his refusal to back up. This is a go-forward fighter. He is there to take your heart.
Manny Pacquiao is a hungry young brawler with a powerful left and an eager heart.
This is why we use the word sensation. Manny Pacquiao is a storm.
This was a typhoon that had come across the Pacific.
He's inspired an impoverished nation to hope and has become its crown prince.
Here's a kid who sold stolen cigarettes on the streets so he could eat and becomes his country's most celebrated citizen.
Chapter 1 of their tale began nearly 2 years ago when the veteran warrior outdueled boxing's hottest sensation.
And Morales chases him across the ring and says, "Let's fight."
And I told him that, Erik, we took you lightly, and he told me to shut the F up and sit down and stop crying.
There's kind of an ugly side to Erik Morales. He's real morose at times and angry.
But Pacquiao fought fire with firepower in their rematch.
And when Pacquiao dropped him, that was symbolic, because nobody knocks down Morales.
In the grand finale on November 18th, a battle-torn legend will try to turn back time, and a people's champion will stake his claim as one of boxing's pound-for-pound best.
Pacquiao is a dangerous, dangerous fight. To take him 3 times is almost suicide.
This is the countdown to Pacquiao Morales 3.
In the first news conference in preparation for this fight, Erik looked worse, more out of shape, more overweight than I think I've ever seen him before.
I would not have known him. I would not have recognized him. I mean, he looked like a bird that had been feeding on a carcass too long. I mean, he was puffed up.
130 pounds is just not a natural weight for him at this point in his life. And so his biggest fight before Manny Pacquiao was going to be on the scales.
To help in that battle, Morales has changed his routine. He decided to work with a team of personal trainers in Los Angeles for 8 weeks before heading to camp in Mexico.
I mean, if you want to be fast, you got to train fast. You are what you train. If you want to be quick, you got to train quick. That's it. Good. Now you got it. Good.
Fue fundamental el peso, pero fue la edad, el tiempo, las rutinas. Tienes que cambiar, variar.
It just gets harder and harder and harder every time, and particularly hard when you're a kid from El Norte who's rich, who will never have to worry about a peso again as long as you live.
La Zona Norte in Tijuana, Mexico, a border town to the United States with an infamous reputation.
It's a crazy town. It's like being in Tombstone. That's what Tijuana's like. It is wild. You could end up losing your life over anything. There's no law.
He grew up in one of the roughest neighborhoods in our hemisphere. He grew up in a place where you fight or die.
La zona norte siempre ha sido peligroso. Inicio, aprendí boxeo por defenderme en la escuela, por saber.
Erik was homeschooled in his boxing education by his father, Jose, a former pro fighter who ran a gym in their home.
Erik Morales grew up literally above the gym, so it seemed kind of preordained that he was going to be a fighter himself. The thing was, his father didn't really want him to fight.
No me fue tan bien, quizás no caí en las buenas manos, entonces yo tenía miedo de que él cayera en las mismas manos. Tenía una forma diferente de ver las cosas a lo que yo. Pero realmente al final del día estamos en el mismo camino.
And even when he turned pro, Mr. Morales said, well, now I got him. I'm going to really match him up against these seasoned veterans, and he would walk right through him. And pretty soon he realized that his son was not just good, but possibly great.
On the other side of the world, Manny Pacquiao was surviving an early life of dire poverty.
Well, the Philippines is a rather poor country. It's a third world country like Mexico. They're considered like on the lower tier.
Just, you know, very poor area. They don't have much. In General Santos City, if you go to the bathroom, you take a bucket and you pour the water down. That's how you flush the toilet. And they don't use toilet paper. They use their hands and wash their hands.
We don't have money to support my study, so I have to decide to continue my boxing career. When I went to Manila, I was 14 years old.
He told me about his father eating his dog and him running away from home because of that. And that's how he ended up in the boxing gym in Manila. You're poor and you don't have money to eat, you either steal or eat a dog.
All of the stories, I'm not sure that I believe all of them, but they're great stories. He's been one of these aggressive kids that was going to fight and do it his own way.
Whereas Erik just had to come downstairs to become a fighter. Manny Pacquiao had to leave his home and his family and go to the big city.
Back in the bull rings of Tijuana, Erik Morales continued to cultivate his homegrown talent.
Estaba enfrentando a buenos peleadores, muy buenos a nivel nacional y a nivel mundial. A pasadita las 20 estaba disputando el título mundial.
In 1997, Morales faced his biggest challenge yet, vying for the 122-pound title against fellow Mexican Daniel Zaragoza.
Zaragoza was a big obstacle for Morales. He was an iron chin gladiator from Mexico City, and he had never been stopped. Piece by piece, he figured him out.
And another right hand, and Morales is tattooing Zaragoza, who elects to go down and take a knee.
Erik Morales at 122 pounds, force of nature.
Great right hand to the body.
It was an issue of a hungry, tough, ambitious young fighter to kill the king.
That's when he became one of Mexico's favorite fighters after that fight.
Morales shined in the 122-pound division. But the spotlight also fell on another of Mexico's favorite sons, Marco Antonio Barrera.
In the Mexican media, there was discussion of who was the true successor to Julio Cesar Chavez. And the great thing about prize fighting is you can settle it in the ring.
With a battle between two typically determined Mexican warriors. Super Bantamweight champion Erik Morales against former Super Bantamweight title holder Marco Antonio Barrera. Morales trying to bust up Barrera with power. Barrera comes back, doubling up with the left hook to the body, his best punch. Here comes Barrera. Here comes Morales. What a fight.
And you can see people putting their hands to their faces saying, what am I looking at?
And suddenly at center ring, Morales takes over the fight with his right hand. And a right hand from Barrera. And now Morales is badly hurt.
I mean, when you come away from a fight thinking you need the doctor's attention, you need a shower, you know that it just went way beyond drama even.
Erik Morales has never lost a fight. Marco Antonio Barrera has never wanted one more.
12 rounds of all-out brawling ended in the hands of the judges, who awarded the split decision to Morales.
Right after the fight, Morales gave him his due, and Barrera would have none of it. And that began the bitter feud between the two. Then he became Dark Morales, and then he was very inaccessible after that.
While Morales was carving out an already spectacular career, Manny Pacquiao was quickly becoming the most exciting fighter in the Pacific Rim.
He's a bloody mess. He's looking for a coup de grace, and he cannot fight. Yes, it's over. He stopped it. It's over. It's over. Stop the fight. And Manny Pacquiao remains unbeaten.
I was Asian champion.
A fifth-round knockout by Manny Pacquiao of the Philippines.
And we decided we're going to United States.
He started on the East Coast and worked his way west, and everybody turned him down. He was turned down by every promoter. There was just no interest in him.
We visit a different gym and train every day. I saw Federots at that time.
I went to my people and I said, geez, can this guy punch, you know, speed unbelievable. I was so impressed with him.
Freddie is exactly the kind of trainer who can help Manny to keep that ebullient joy that typifies him while still being sharp to fight and mean enough to fight.
He hails from General Santos City in the Philippines.
Pacquiao's first fight on U.S. soil came in June of 2001, when he was tapped as a late replacement against feared South African Lejanolo Ledwaba.
Lejanolo Ledwaba looked immaculate. He was one of those totally skilled fighters, and so he was a significant favorite here over Manny.
Everybody worried because I'm trained 2 weeks only before the fight, but I believe that is my doorway to be a world champion.
And he is banging Ledwaba right now.
Like the emergence of Greta Garbo. That was one of those stunning, captivating nights.
It was the first chance for people to see him, and he was explosive.
I think this guy just hit so hard that Ledwaba is totally on the defensive.
Everything that I thought that he could do, he did.
A resignation in the eyes of Ledwaba.
That's a TKO victory for the very impressive Manny Pacquiao.
I go back far enough that I saw the great Flash Elordi, the last great Filipino fighter, and I thought, whoa, here comes another Elordi, except that he was even more dynamic because he was a great puncher.
After his disputed victory over Barrera, Morales won a string of punishing battles, adding to his growing reputation as a warrior.
He had this sort of humbleness, but then pretty soon he became so well known, and then they would have these tabloid wars between him and Marco Antonio Barrera, and that changed him completely.
They have their own little war outside the ring because Barrera comes from Mexico City and Morales comes from Tijuana.
Erik sees Marco as privileged, stuck up, too big for his britches. They hate each other.
No, yo no lo odio, nomás recibo a la gente con el mismo cariño. Simplemente que chingue a su madre, así de simple.
Morales is a fighter who had a very high regard for himself, justifiably. Going into the rematch, he dismissed Barrera. He didn't even understand what all the fuss was about.
Big right hand by Barrera. Stuns Morales. He hits him in the mouth again. Hard right hand by Morales. Barrera continues to attack. This is what it's all about. Pride, honor, revenge. Mexican boxing at its best.
This time the decision went to Barrera in a fight many felt Morales had won by a slim margin. And though fans eagerly awaited a third fight, another featherweight sensation loomed on the horizon for Barrera, Manny Pacquiao.
I recall Barrera saying at the time before the fight, he reminds me of me when I was 24. He could see that this kid had a certain fire that was going to be hard to put out.
I've bet on 3 fights in my life, and I bet Manny Pacquiao to win by knockout against Barrera. I said to Manny, all you got to do is make this guy fight every minute of every round, and he will break down and he will fold. He will not last.
Hard left hand, straight on the button by Pacquiao. Down goes Barrera.
This was, a typhoon that had come across the Pacific. This was a force of nature.
There's not a lot of time to adjust once those blows start coming, and Barrera wasn't prepared.
He's getting hurt. Here comes Barrera's corner. Barrera's corner man is up on the apron. He's going to step into the ring. That's a good decision.
By the end of that night, I thought to myself, well, Marco's done, and I certainly don't want to ever see him in the ring again with somebody as dynamic and dangerous as Manny Pacquiao.
A superstar emerges in San Antonio.
Everything in the Philippines stopped. Everybody was just glued to his TV set. Manny Pacquiao was a heavy underdog, and a lot of people didn't expect him to win. But he brings that hope to the Filipinos.
He's been declared a national treasure by the government of the Philippines, which allows them to protect him with military forces.
Here's a kid who sold stolen cigarettes on the streets so he could eat, and becomes his country's most famous citizen, most celebrated citizen.
In 2004, the trilogy that became Mexico's treasure was complete. The Barrera-Morales saga ended with a second loss for the Tijuana native. The defeat was a blow to Morales' pride.
You fight a guy 3 times. You hear about him every day of your life, and you don't want to.
¿Por qué tengo que hablar de él? ¿Por qué tengo que hablar de pendejos? ¿Por qué no puedo hablar de mí mismo?
There is probably a pain in his heart about those 3 Barrera fights, and that it turned out that either he misjudged Barrera or himself or both.
Morales looked to erase that pain the following year, and Manny Pacquiao was just the man to provide the motivation.
Huge, tremendous motivation. A big part of being ready to fight Manny was that Manny had violently whacked Barrera, and if Erik could beat him, then he could go back to Mexico and say, see, I handled the guy who blew up your boy.
Morales had seen him fight. He saw him fight Barrera, and he had them all figured out.
If Erik Morales was convinced of his ability to beat the Filipino, Pacquiao was equally bold.
We're warming up in the dressing room, and Manny was telling jokes, and he's never like that. I mean, I slapped Manny with the mitt and said, come on, let's go, let's get to work, stop screwing around.
Incredible energy in the house. That crowd, about 50-50, Pacquiao-Morales, and all of them together and sharing that communion. Ooh, I mean, that was an event.
Remember, guys, I'm fair, but I'm firm.
Pacquiao was on the biggest stage that he had ever been in his life. I thought he was maybe a little too aggressive, too early.
Both fighters focusing on the body early, but now Pacquiao lands his left-hand right. And again, and the blinding speed of Pacquiao's apparent, and Morales chases him across the ring and says, let's fight.
Erik Morales was able to use his advantages as the bigger man with a longer jab to outbox Pacquiao.
Somebody is bleeding. It's not Morales.
It's Pacquiao who's bleeding from his right eye.
All right, time. Relax. Easy. Let him breathe.
The blood comes to my eyes, and you can't concentrate to the fight.
Manny, nice deep breath, son.
It took us 3 or 4 rounds to get over that panic of the cut and to get back into the fight.
Great left hand by Morales stops Pacquiao in his track. Right hand wobbles him again. Morales senses a chance. Pacquiao comes back.
Erik Morales, he's willing to stand there toe-to-toe. I mean, he found someone, as it turned out, who would stand there toe-to-toe with him.
What a right hand by Morales. Pacquiao's in trouble. Morales wobbled him with that right.
You've got 2 guys who can take a lot of punishment, but Manny Pacquiao was limited by the eye, but also by the fact that he wasn't throwing enough right hands.
Erik Morales is in command of a big fight.
Él ya no tenía el suficiente poder para hacerme algo. Realmente nunca lo ha tenido para golpearme fuerte y sentir su poder.
What a fight as Erik Morales outboxes Manny Pacquiao in a violent fight.
That was brilliant, Erik Morales. He had a plan. He executed the plan. He basically stayed within the envelope 90% of the time for 12 rounds.
Among the issues going into that fight was Pacquiao's growing disillusionment with his promoter, Murad Muhammad. Freddie Roach claimed Muhammad had become a major distraction to the fighter and led the charge for his dismissal.
It's kind of an unwritten rule in the sport that the trainer sticks to his knitting and does not interfere in a manager's business, but Freddie felt protective of Manny, and he helped to create a confrontation between Manny and Murad Muhammad that led to the dissolution of that relationship.
And I don't want to say that's why Erik won the fight. Erik won the fight. There's no doubt about that. But we did have a lot of distractions.
Everybody advised me that you have to concentrate to your fight, because when you lose, you're wrong, you're nothing.
He's a go-along, get-along kind of guy. He was surfing the wave of his dramatic success and enormous popularity. There's always something going on in Manny Pacquiao's life.
He lives in a fishbowl in the Philippines. He's a movie star, a boxing star, a rising political star. You know, he's bigger than the president. An endorsement from him can turn an election.
He's the most famous person in the Philippines, and he has no competition. It's unbelievable. I mean, his album in the first week is sold 500,000 copies. I don't even know if he can sing.
Laban ko, laban nyo, laban natin to.
Everything he does turns to gold. He's huge over there.
I don't ever see a strain on Manny's face. I don't ever see anything to indicate that he's laboring under the pressure of that kind of identity. How many fans from other cultures around the globe will attach to this guy because of his color and his excitement and the way that he fights?
So one thing about Manny Pacquiao, once he comes through those doors of my gym, it's nothing but work.
Before their January 2006 rematch, it was Morales who had to deal with issues outside the ring. He parted ways with his father, Jose, replacing him as trainer. And at 29 years old, with a naturally larger body, he once again did battle with the scales.
If you're like Erik Morales, and you've spent so much of your career making weight, and therefore spent a lot of your career in a nasty mood, then you might arrive at this juncture of your career a little bit tired of the process.
When they got to the weigh-in and I looked at Morales, he was gaunt. He looked like a raisin. He got up on the scale and he made the weight, but he turned around and I thought he was going to faint. And I thought, he's in trouble.
The time has come for our main event. Erik Morales against Manny Pacquiao.
The rematch picked up right where Fight 1 left off.
Seesaw fight already. We're only in the third round. The war is on.
Pacquiao fought a smarter fight.
He showed more versatility than he had in the first fight. He used the right hand just as well as the left hand.
Our game plan was to fight him at a fast pace and go to the body a lot and take his legs away from him.
Pacquiao is getting more and more accurate. Morales catches him with a left hook, turns it back around for the moment. Strafing Pacquiao against the ropes with lefts and rights. Manny looking to get in a left-hand shot. Backs Morales off.
It was will against will, toe-to-toe, and then Erik Morales was the one who blinked.
What a round for Manny Pacquiao.
You look over at his corner, they're rubbing his legs and trying to bring him back, and there's no bringing someone's legs back after they take the body beating like that.
Manny, he's all done. He's all done.
He was looking for the ropes, he was looking for the ref, he was looking for his corner. He wanted no part of Manny Pacquiao.
There he goes. Good call, Manny. That's the first real knockdown of Erik Morales' career.
And when Pacquiao dropped Morales, that was symbolic because nobody knocks down Morales. Nobody does.
It's over. There's the second knockdown and the stoppage.
The fury went out of him, and he seemed far more mortal and human and full of flaws than I had seen in the past.
Conecté los buenos golpes. Vino la bajada la carga del trabajo para poder marcar el peso.
Every moment of Erik Morales' life has been predicated on his refusal to back up. He knows that when he looks at a videotape and sees himself slipping and ducking and trying to back away from Manny Pacquiao punches, that's an Erik Morales nobody's seen before.
When you can't make the weight, and maybe your brain's telling you, you know what, I don't want to do it anymore.
I think that it's really hard for Erik at this point to say to himself, okay, one more time, no more carnitas, no more beer and tequila.
With his father returning as his trainer, Morales demonstrated at a recent officially sanctioned public weigh-in that he is right on schedule.
Estamos más desahogados en lo del peso. Y hemos perdido peso poco a poco. Vamos bien, muy bien.
We have a clause in the contract. If for every pound he's over, he has to pay us $500,000. And then we don't even have to fight. If he comes in 2 pounds heavy, we'll fight him. If he comes in 3 pounds heavy, we'll take the money and we won't fight him, because there'll be too much of an advantage for him.
He'll get to 130. He'll get to 130 for about a minute and a half. He'll be dry-throated, he'll be angry, and then he'll have to put himself back together and rehydrate and try to get his mind onto the fight.
Manny Pacquiao will be trying to keep his focus as well. He recently signed a 7-fight deal with Oscar de la Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions. The move does not go over well with Top Rank Promotions, Golden Boy's rival, and Pacquiao's current promoter.
You know, everybody is trying to sign Manny Pacquiao. So the thing was, I didn't think it was a problem for him to sign.
Top Rank is claiming their deal with Pacquiao was violated by Manny's signing with Golden Boy.
I don't think it's premature, no, because it doesn't start till after the Morales fight, and there was nothing holding us back.
But as was the case before the first Morales fight, Pacquiao is once again embroiled in a conflict regarding his rightful promoter.
I don't want to talk about that right now because I have a coming fight. That destruction is my fault because I make my own destruction on myself.
Manny's simple-minded enough that the only ball that matters to him is the ball that's coming over the net right now. He's not terribly preoccupied with what's happened before, and he's not terribly preoccupied with what's down the road.
We're going to do all our obligations, and we're going to train really hard for this fight. The future's not really bright unless we win this fight.
The future begins on November 18th. One of Mexico's legendary fighters and the Filipino bomber do it again.
Pacquiao's going to go after him right away. That's his style. It's to jump on him to see what he has.
I can see Pacquiao really test Morales' endurance, try to discover if he's had a tough time making weight.
Or will the weight of the nation on Pacquiao's shoulders finally take its toll?
I feel like pressure, but I'm not going to surrender.
Manny Pacquiao is the kind of fighter in his prime who can only be beaten by himself.
Sooner or later, Manny's going to throw in another bad night. But I think Morales is surly enough and mean-spirited enough that Manny will probably be motivated again.
Or will the passion that has fueled Erik Morales so many times propel him to victory once again?
It would remind everybody of just how outstanding of a fighter he was at one time. But there is maybe a danger that he could get wiped out.
For Erik, basically, he wins this fight, or that's that. He won't appear at this level of the sport again.
Pacquiao is a dangerous, dangerous fighter. To take him 3 times is almost suicide.
I do feel Manny will knock him out. You tasted the ground once, it's easier to taste it the second time.
Me caí de cansancio, no por sus golpes. Esta tercera vez que nos vamos a enfrentar, quiero ver qué realmente pasa.
You've got 2 guys going toe-to-toe who love to punch. You've got a history between them. You've got passion. You've got 2 nations on either side, 2 skilled boxers. Why not?